Right, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Philip, for that introduction. Can you all hear me at the back? Yes? Louder. I will do my best. I'm very small and this tends to get in the way. I don't think they expected to have someone this short talking. I would like to start with a disclaimer in that it's supposed to be the folk of the jewel streets, and that is so huge that when I started to look at it, within a few days I ended up with several thousand different people, and I hadn't got past the first census. And every single one had something to say and something that happened to them. And so this is a microcosm of the jewel streets, and it focuses on the early people of the jewel streets up to about 1911, with a little nod up to the present day. So I hope you're not disappointed by that. I know everybody here pretty well either is from or has lived in the jewel streets. I have to say the odds of me having lit on your house to tell your story is very, very small, but if you get lucky, will you let me know afterwards? Thank you. And a man moved in called Mr. Nicholson. Mr. Nicholson, I like Mr. Nicholson, but I have to say the man was one of those people that brings bad luck with him wherever he goes. His story is rather sad, and we're going to revert to money to explain it. Mr. Nicholson began life as the son of an alum miner in Bulby. Alum mining was not a pleasant occupation, to put it mildly. But like father, like son, he went and worked in the mines. Gradually, the alum mines were closed down. The last one to be closed was Bulby, that closed in 1870. There was no more work. And Mr. Nicholson packed up his 4 children and his wife, and he moved down the coast. And in 1871, he's in Whitby, and he's a jet miner, right? Jet mining probably wasn't quite as bad as alum mining, but it still wasn't exactly a nice occupation, and it didn't pay very well. Now, Whitby Jet was greatly in demand. The trade has expanded massively from 2 workshops up to 50 in about 10 years, and they all wanted jet. Now, there's only so much you can hack out of the cliffs, right, or pick up off the beach, and the cliffs are notoriously dangerous and crumbly. So they started looking inland, and they found there were huge, great slabs of it, great reserves and plates of it inland. So they began to dig drift mines. One of the way through to the jet was through the alum shale, and so probably Mr. Nicholson found he could get a job because he was experienced handling this stuff. Unfortunately, just about the time he deserted the unemployment hole that was Bulby and rushed off to Whitby to ride the wave of the desire for more jet, the Spanish arrived. Now, Whitby Jet sold for £300 a tonne, and I am indebted to the National Archives currency calculator that will tell you what any amount of money in X year is worth in this year. It's great fun. £300 is about 13,700 in present day values. That's not to be sneezed at for anything for a tonne. But the Spanish jet, it's not as good, but most people couldn't tell. That was being flogged in the market for 60, at most £120 a tonne. 2,750 to £5,500. Now, really, really rich people, really posh people, they're going to want Whitby Jet. But the demand for black jewellery, jet jewellery, was huge, partly because of the trend for mourning jewellery. It was considered suitable. It was okay to wear black jewellery. So everybody wanted to emulate. And they bought the cheaper jewellery. And that meant that poor old Mr. Nicholson, who figured he was onto a good thing, suddenly found he was earning the top figure. £1, 5 shillings a week. That's what they paid a jet miner. 60 quid. With his 4 children and his wife. So jet mining didn't quite turn out to be the road to riches that he was hoping. And finally, when his children had grown up, he came to Saltburn in 1881. And he set himself up in my house, and he decided he was going to be a stone cutter. He was certainly probably qualified by now. And he was one of the men who would have cut and probably helped to carry all the big blocks of stone in all the big new buildings that were being erected from 1880 onwards. You can see the changes just looking up the street now. Plastic windows, plastic doors, many, many cars, most of them turned into flats, and yet you can still see the essential nature of these beautiful houses. And if you're interested in finding the stories that your house have to tell, there is a wonderful website which is called bricksandbrass.com. And if you go onto it, you feed in tedious detail what your windowsills are made of, what sort of lintel you've got, do you have architrave, and if you don't know what it is, you can click on it and it'll tell you. Do you have a portico? Do you have stripes under your windows? And when you feed all this in, it goes to the database and it comes back and says, your house was built in 1871, plus or minus 5 years, which is spot on where mine's concerned. Anybody can do it. Go with original features. Don't put UPVC windows in, by the way, no. Think about what it would have been like, and if you've got any idea, look at similar houses that have still got their original windows, for example. But it's a really, really fun tool, and it will help you date your house. Every house has its history. Every house has its own characters. I started this by wondering who lived in my house, and I find I have more questions than I ever started with, and I could spend the rest of my life and I'd probably never be able to answer them. And I probably can't answer any of your questions, but I'm willing to give it a try. Thank you.